Good morning, everyone. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a wonderful day ahead. And this event we are going to host configuring incremental automated refresh in Power BI session. We'll be starting in a while, and also this will be the setup would be this session will go up to until probably 11:30 maximum, and after that we'll be having a Q&A. That's all about it. And let me introduce InnoventSys, our training organization. We started some time ago, and mainly we are providing training programs, basically into corporate trainings, as well as we do organize public training programs. And when it comes to the technology wise, we mainly focus on IT training programs, and also we focus on some sort of soft skills training programs, basically about non-IT programs. And technical programs, if we talk about the technology wise, basically we are catering into Microsoft technologies, you know, about starting from Microsoft Office, Windows, Server Stack, and cloud, that is Azure, and then Office 365, then Power BI, then data entire product stack, and so on. And not only Microsoft, we are catering into ITIL, which is Information Technology Infrastructure Library, and also project management. We do have two programs, which is two programs are PMP, Project Management Professional, and Prince 2 program. And also React.js, CISSP. CISSP is one of the top-notch security program. It's worldwide recognized, well-demanded program. And also software testing. Then it goes to DevOps, then business analyst, which is BA. Then also, if you talk about, we have a couple of models that we are working on. Basically, we do have very focused training programs, and mostly we are targeting, or mostly we are providing corporate training programs, in-house programs. And if you have any requirements, you can contact us. And not only that, we do have organized programs outside of the company. We organize the program and we invite the people. But these days, due to this Corona and COVID-19 outbreak and the pandemic, we do all the programs virtual, like this session. And that is about InnoventSys. And let me, okay, before I introduce the trainer, during this session, you will not be able to raise any question, or you will not be able to talk with the trainer or the panel, because then we believe that it's going to be a very disturbance situation. But of course, at the top of your panel, the menu bar, you can see the Q&A session, Q&A window. You can just click on that and type rename yourself and ask your question. Then at the Q&A session, we will raise your question, and hopefully Dinesh will be able to answer your question. So that is all about the structure, and I'm not taking much time to introduce Dinesh Priyankara. Dinesh is one of the oldest Microsoft MVPs in Sri Lanka, and he is very popular in the region as well, and closely working with Microsoft head office, Redmond. And Dinesh is a trainer by himself as well. He's doing many data related programs since about 10 to 15 or maybe 20 years, that much period. So more than taking much time about introducing Dinesh, I would like to invite Dinesh to take over the session. Dinesh, it's over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pradeep. So good morning to everyone. I'm sure that we have some people who have already participated for some of the classes, and I believe that there are participants who have never ever come for our sessions or classes. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining with us today. So as we have planned, we'll be talking about incremental refresh in Power BI. So before that, Pradeep has done the introductory part, but let me quickly go through this slide, and then we'll jump to the content of this topic. My name is Dinesh Priyankara, and I've been working in this industry for last almost 20 years now. I've been working with data-related implementation, started with the standard database management system like OLTP solutions, then integration, reporting, data warehousing, and big data, data science. Those are the projects I've been working with. In addition to that, I'm closely working with Microsoft SQL exams. I'm a contributor for SQL Server 2014, 16, 18 exams. Plus, I have contributed for some of the Azure exams and recently for Power BI exams as well. In terms of Power BI, just to mention my experience, I have done a few large implementations for a couple of companies. There's a BI implementation, so Power BI was a part of it. So I have implemented incremental refresh for some companies as well. In addition to that, I'm trying my best to use all these features given by Microsoft to make sure that users getting real BI experience with the implementation we have done. Right, so that's my background. So as Pradeep explained, you have no way of asking question through audio channel, but you can anytime use the QA section in Teams and send the question to us. Once the discussion and the demonstrations are done, we'll take question one by one and we'll try our best to give the solution for your question. Right, so that's about me and the way we are going to do this session. So let me start with the session. I'm going to turn off my camera. Okay, so the slide. So let's try to understand incremental refresh. So we know that generally when we talk about Power BI desktop, Power BI services, what we generally do is we get data from multiple sources and then we combine them, we do some modification, and then we try to create the data set. That's what we call as model. So earlier or even now we use a term called ETL, extract, transform, loading. So that's a technique we use even with Power BI. But when it comes to Power BI, we know that it's a small tool that has been installed in our machine. It's not in the server. And because of that, we have no way of loading large number of records. So even though we loaded whatever the amount of data that can be set with Power BI model, once it is published to the service, it is available for all other users. But once it is published to the service, it's very difficult to refresh this data set if it is really large. Let's talk about an example. Let's say we have a SQL database and we try to load a large number of records to our Power BI dataset or the model. Once the model is loaded, then we create reports with multiple pages and then publish it. Next day, data is getting changed. Now, only option we had with Power BI service was just refresh the entire dataset. Let's say the dataset has been configured or populated with let's say 10 million records. So whenever you refresh for new records, new changes to your reports and dashboards, unfortunately, it takes entire dataset. In this case, if it is 10 million, it takes all 10 million records into the dataset again. So it consumes resources, it takes long time, and it is not the efficient way of getting data refreshed. So considering this fact, Microsoft gave us a facility called incremental refresh with Power BI. So it is basically allows you to refresh only records due to certain number of days. For example, now you loaded 1 million records to your dataset. It has been published to Power BI service, and all users connect with your Power BI service and see reports. Now, whenever you want to get new data, you can configure incremental refresh saying, okay, do not refresh the entire data set. Do not take all 10 million records from my data source. Just go through my data set, find records related to last 5 days, 3 days, 7 days. You can define it and then basically replace existing records with those extracted records. So that is incremental refresh. So it allows you to refresh only records related to a certain number of days. Now this makes sure that you don't need to load the whole thing. So what happened when you refresh the whole thing? So what happened when you refresh the whole thing? So what Power BI does is it deletes all the records, or it's basically wipe out all the record and then reload all the records from your source. But with this incremental refresh, it is not required. The reason is it just takes data related to the number of days you have set, and then those records will be just replaced. So you're not going to see 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even 1 hour time for refreshing. It just take data related to the number of days you have mentioned and then refreshes that data set. In addition to that, it allows you to detect changes. If you really do not want to do that, fine, you can simply say, okay, I want to access last 3 days, just replace all last 3 day data. That's one way of it. Or else you can actually tell this guy saying, go for these data set. Okay, analyze last 3 days data, but do not extract everything. See whether records have been changed, and if records have been changed, then extract them and replace. There are some other internal processes related to it. You are going to see it as a part of the demonstration, but it allows you to optimize it further. So if you want, you can refresh the whole thing. If you go for incremental refresh, you can refresh data related to a couple of days. You can further enhance it saying, okay, when you refresh last 3 days, last 7 days, just take only changed records. So this is incremental refresh. Let's try to understand it in different way. So let's say we have a data source like this. Let's say it's a SQL database, and you can you can assume that it's in your on-prem server, or even it can be a cloud server or cloud SQL server as well. So you have a SQL database and it has large number of transactions. Now you are supposed to create a model based on certain number of tables in this database, and create reports and then publish to the Power BI service, and then create dashboard based on it. Now, first challenge when you try to create Power BI desktop model is to whether you have to extract everything from the SQL database, or just get a small number of records. Now, if you do not think about incremental refresh, what we generally do is, let's say we want to create the report or the dashboard for last 5 years. We extract data related to all months related to last 5 years into Power BI desktop model, and then we do whatever the optimization we need, transformation we need, and then we create reports and then publish it. So when you publish it, all records go from your machine to the service. So once it is published, then we can refresh it, and again when you refresh it, it tries to get all records for last 5 years. That's what we have been doing in terms of creating Power BI reports and dashboard. So once we have the incremental refresh, unfortunately, Microsoft limited it to premium edition. So most of us we use either free or pro license related to Power BI. So when Microsoft released this incremental refresh, it wasn't available for free tier. It wasn't available for professional tier or the Power BI Pro. It was available only for the premium. So we had no way of using it. So all we did was just refresh the entire data set. But now incremental refresh is available with Pro license as well, which means you can configure, if you have Pro license, you can configure incremental refresh without the premium license. So how do you do it? So see, if you have that facility, but if you have only free license, you have no way of doing this one. You have to have a Pro license. But if you have a Pro license, rather than taking all records when you design your Power BI desktop, okay, so you start your Power BI desktop, rather than taking the entire data set, you just take a certain number of records. Let's say you have to create the report based on 5 years data, but you can take just one month data. Okay, so you limit the number of records and then you create your reports. right? So once the report is created, or once the data is loaded and once you have applied all the transformation, you can configure incremental refresh with your Power BI desktop. Remember that part, you have no way of configuring incremental refresh in Power BI service. It can be configured only with Power BI desktop. So you have to configure incremental refresh with Power BI desktop. Now remember, we have not loaded all records. We have loaded, let's say, 1 month data, not 5 years data. So you configure incremental refresh with Power BI desktop model, and then you publish. Now your report is published into the Power BI service. So once it is published, you are going to see a data set and you are going to see the report. And you know that once it is published, if you open the report in Power BI service, you're going to see data related to the loaded month because you didn't load everything. Now we can use the benefits given with incremental refresh. Once your model publish, or we can call it as data set now, you can refresh the data set either using a schedule or you can manually refresh. When you refresh initially, it takes all the historical records. Again, this is configurable. If the SQL database has data for last 10 years, you can say, I don't want all 10 years data. I'm focusing only on 5 years. Get only last 5 years records. So it will, with the first refresh, it will get records for last 5 years. Then all subsequent refreshes, it will take only changes based on the way you have configured your incremental refresh policy. So this makes sure that you don't spend much time for refreshing your data set and you get only changes from your sources to your data set. So this is how it works. So I believe that you understood the process related to incremental refresh. If you have any question, as I told you, you can use Q&A section for typing all the question. We'll see whether we can take some question before completing the session, but most probably we'll be taking all the question at the end of the session, right? So let me go into the next slide. How do we configure incremental refresh? So as I told you, first thing is you need to bring the data into your Power BI desktop. Now, before you configure incremental refresh, you have to create 2 parameters. Now remember, these 2 parameters, you have no way of naming these parameters as you want. So as you see, you have to name the parameters as range start and range end. That's how you have to do it. It is case sensitive. Remember that part as well. So you have to create a 1 parameter called range start, set the type as date time, and set the current value. Now, if you want to load data for June, of course, you want to load for 5 years, but as I told you, you'll be loading a small number of records initially. So in that case, you can say the starting date is 1st of June and range end parameter. You can set the value as end of June, or let's say today is 4th. You can say 4th of June. So that's the first step you have to do. You configure 2 parameters. One is called as range start. Second one is called as range end. As I told you, you cannot use your own names, and these names are case sensitive. So right. So that's the first step. You configure your parameters. Then you go for your transformation section or the query editor, and then pick a column for finding records. Now you need to make sure you have a proper column in your data set or proper attribute in your data set for handling this refresh, because that's what Power BI looks for. Like if you look at this slide, you can see my data set has a column called order date. So I want to use that column for setting incremental refresh. So what you have to do is you pick the column order date. Just like Excel, you can configure filtering. So you pick custom filter and then set the filter like this. Now, as you see, you can see I have set 2 conditions. The first one is after or equal, and it has been set with range start parameter. Second condition is before, and it has been set with range end. So what I'm saying is, use these two parameters, range start and range end, to pick my data set based on the values that have been set. Now, initially, as I told you, I have set 1st of June to let's say end of June. So it will pick data related to this range. So once this is configured, your data set is ready. And then you can create your reports using reporting section, and then you can publish it. But before publishing, you need to configure the policy. So this is the window for configuring incremental refresh policy. First thing is, of course, you need to enable incremental refresh for your table. Okay, so you just pick the table from the drop down and say, I want to enable incremental refresh. So you switch it on. And then the second drop down. Okay, so second drop down is all about what's the history you want to maintain with your published data set. Okay, not with the file in your Power BI desktop. Okay, once it is published, once the initial refresh done, how many years you want to keep with your data set. Now, as you see with the slide, we have configured 3 years. So you need to understand what is this 3 year. We are talking about 3 calendar years. Now we are in 2020. So in that case, if you configure this setting as 3 years, it will use 3 complete years plus the current year. That's how it goes. Now we are in 2020. In that case, it will pick 2017, 18, 19. It will take records for 17, 18, 19 plus records from the current year up to current date. Okay, that's how it extracts data based on your incremental refresh. So you can configure this as 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years as you want. Okay, so that's the second setting. Third setting is once the initial refresh is done. Okay, when it's come to second refresh, what are the days it has to look for? You can configure days, you can configure months as you want. Now, as you see, I have configured it as 7 days. All I want is today is 4th of June, including today's date, go for 7 days and pick all records for 7 days. Okay, I'm not talking about the third option yet, but assume that we have configured refresh rows where column order days in the last, like in the third drop down as 7 days. With if the setting is if the value of this setting is 7 days, it will extract data for last 7 days. Okay, in this case, if I'm not mistaken, it will extract data from 28th of May to 4th of June. Now that's the second setting. You can continue, you can save this incremental refresh policy without doing anything with the next 2 checkboxes. Okay, next 2 checkboxes are some additional settings if you really want to optimize it further and apply some business logics, right? But generally all you need is the first one, which is pick the table and turn it on, and number of years for historical records, and number of days for refreshers. That's all you have to set. But what's the first checkbox? You might have heard about a term called high watermark, specifically on ETLing. When we implement data warehousing, we extract data based on high watermark. So what is high watermark? It's something like you know the level of it, and you take everything above that level. So when it's come to OLTP databases, in most of the transaction tables, we have a column which is being maintained for or the modified date. So basically that column can be used for identifying whether a record has been changed or not. Okay, so if you have something like that in your data set, you can use it. But if you do not have, then you have no way of using this setting. Let's say we have a column called modified date, and then what it does is it still goes for 7 days. Okay, and it checks and see whether before going for 7 days, it knows that the maximum modified date it has recorded with the previous refresh. Okay, it has that value. So it goes for the 7 days, and then it picks the first day based on the partition. I'll talk about the partitioning later. So let's say the partition is based on 1 day. Let's say now it tries to get data for 1st of June. What it does is it gets the max modified date for 1st of June based on last refresh. Let's say the max modified date recorded for 1st of June is 3rd of June. Now what it does is, if it can find at least one record related to this date higher than the recorded max date, then it will take all the records from that date. Okay, that's how it goes. So if there are no records that which is higher than the recorded max modified date, then nothing will be refreshed for that specific date or that specific partition. Okay, so that's the usage of this first checkbox. What is the next checkbox? It says refresh complete periods only. There are a situation like this. Now, sometimes you don't need to load some records until the entire process is completed. Now, let's say you have some sort of ordering system and all order records are getting updated at the end of the day. So if you try to refresh the data set somewhere around 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll be getting data which are not completed. So if you really want to make sure that you're loading only completed data, even though records have been changed, you can check this last checkbox, which is only refresh complete days. So it makes sure that now how it determines whether it is days or months or years, it's based on the second drop down. Okay, so because we have set the refresh period as 7 days, in that case it looks for days. If you have set it as 1 month, it looks for the entire month. Okay, so it will check and see whether any record has been changed somewhere around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. In that case, it will not take it unless until the the period you have mentioned is completed. Okay, so that's an additional setting for improving your refresh based on certain business logics. That's all you have to set. Once this is once the policy is set with your Power BI desktop, you can publish it, and after that all you have to do is refreshing. Okay, now let me take you through a data set and show you certain things we discussed. I believe that you can see my Power BI desktop file. Okay, this is what I'm going to use. So I'll be loading a certain number of records from my on-prem SQL server. Okay, and then I'll be creating a refresh policy. I'll be creating certain reports, publish, and let's see how refreshes work for changes in my on-prem SQL database. Okay, so let me connect with my SQL database. I'm going to click on SQL Server. That's going to be the source. And let me open my Management Studio. I'm going to get data from AdventureWorks 2017. And let me get the server name copied. That's it. And let me get the database name copied as well. Okay. So I have used, I'm going to use import option, not direct query. Let me click on OK. Since I have used this data source before, it will not prompt for user ID and password because it's in the cache. So I should see all my tables in this database. So I'm going to pick only 2 tables because I don't want to make this one complex. Let me select sales order header. So then I can set my refresh policy based on order date. Then I'm going to pick one more table just to see the relationships. And then rather than clicking on load, because if I click on load, it will load all the records from my database. Now this database has limited number of records. This has we don't have millions of records. I don't want to spend time on refreshing millions of records, but if I click on load, it will load everything this table has. So rather than loading like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on transform and then set the limitation. But before that, I forgot to mention something. You know that in order to configure incremental refresh, you have to use parameters. If you have not enabled parameters, you will not be able to configure parameters with your query. Okay, so let me cancel it and show you how to enable parameters if you have not enabled. So what you have to do is click on this and then go for options. And in option, you have a setting called if you go for Power Query Editor, you have to make sure this is checked parameters, always allow parameterization in data source and transformation dialog. So just make sure this is enabled. OK, otherwise you will not be able to configure incremental refresh with parameters. OK, right. Let me cancel it again, and I need to get my data source loaded again. So server name read server name and then the database name, import, and I'm going to pick two tables. I'm going to take sales order header and sales territory. OK, without clicking load, I'm going to click on transform load because I don't want to load all records. So the assumption here is we have large number of records in our SQL database. So because of that, we are going to limit the limit number of records. OK, so this is the header table. Right now, I'm going to configure incremental refresh with order date. OK, this is what I'm going to do. So how do you do it? First thing is create parameters. So how do you create parameters? Click on this manage parameters and click on new. The first one is range start. OK, and I'm going to set this as date time value June 1st, 2020. OK, that's the value. So that's range start. I'm going to create a second parameter which is called as range end, and again date time. Say up to 4th, 2020. OK. Oops. Now you don't need to worry about changing these values once it is published. OK. Power BI services, it takes care about changing values for or setting values for range start and range date based on your refreshes. You don't need to worry about that part, but initially you'll be setting this up. OK, right. Let me click on OK. I have two parameters set now. One with the 1st of June, other one is with 4th of June. Right. Let me go to my data set and I'm going to configure these two parameters for filtering. So I'm going to pick order date column. You can click on this icon and then select date time filters and select custom filter. OK, this is what you have to pick. Right, now you have it. So the first option I'm going to set this as is after or equal. I can enter value, but rather than entering value, I'm going to say it should be based on parameters, and then range start is automatically selected because that's the first one. So range start is after or equal to. OK, so range start is 1st of June. So I need to get data related to 1st of June or after. Now, second option, second condition is let me pick as is before, and that has to be set with range end. OK, so it's basically something like between close, right? Between range start and range end. Let me click on OK. Everything is set up. I'm going to click on close and apply. Now it takes data from my SQL database, but not all records based on the parameter values. We can actually check and see. For testing purposes, I need a date table, which is not exists in AdventureWorks, but I'm going to get that date table from my Power BI services. There is an entity called date, which has been created using data flow. So let me, if I go to relationships, or the model, you can see two tables. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get date table from my Power BI service. Click on Power Platform and it should be Power BI Data Flow. Connect. And I think my data set is here. Yeah, so dates, I'm going to pick this and I'm going to load it. So I can use this table for adding slices. That's why I imported date table for this. Okay, let me create the relationship between order date and date. All good, right? So my model is ready. I'll quickly do one more setting for date table. Let me pick date table. I'm going to make this table as a date table. These are standard things in Power BI. So I'm going to mark the table as date. Let me pick the column, date column. And one more thing, I want to make sure that month name is getting sorted based on month number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select month name and then sort by month. Then I know that when I use month name for my visuals, I will see the proper order. Otherwise, month names will be sorted based on alphabetical order, right? Okay, so everything is ready. I'm going to quickly create a small report and then publish, and then we'll start testing incremental refresh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a column chart, and let me take month name for x-axis configured, and I'll take subtotal from sales order header as the value. Okay, that's all I'm going to set. So since we loaded only June data, we are going to see only June. In addition to that, I'm going to add another visual, which is table. And let me take date. And I prefer to change the date format as well. Let me quickly go to the date and select date and change the format, which we can easily see something like this. Because I don't want to see the day name, right? Okay, so date is set, and then let me take something called sales order number, because I'll be using sales order number for testing our incremental refresh. Sales order number as the second column, and then I'll take subtotal as well. Okay, so that's my second visual. Let me quickly increase the font size. We can see it clearly. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to add one more visual, which is going to be a card, and all I need is number of sales. So let me take sales order number, and I'm going to say count. Okay, right. And I'm going to add two slices. So let me add a slicer, and the first one is based on year from date table. Let me make this as a drop list, then I can see it properly. I'll increase the font size, items, and let me increase like this. Yeah, that's fine. Now and I'm going to have a month name as well. Okay, right. So I have two slices and column chart and table. And for example, if I select 2017, I'm not going to see any records. 2020, yes, but it is only for June. If I select May, I'm not going to see anything. Right, everything is set. Let me save this. I'm going to call this as sales demo. Right. Now remember, we have not configured the incremental refresh yet. Now I'm going to configure it. So how do you configure incremental refresh? We set parameters to the query. In order to configure incremental refresh policy, go to this table and you will see ellipsis button. Click on it, and then you will see a menu item called incremental refresh. So you pick the right table. Now we are picking sales order header. Click on ellipsis button and then select incremental refresh. So when you pick incremental refresh, you get this, and you will see a warning says unable to confirm if the M query can be folded. There's something called query folding. Query folding is all about getting all the data based on a single query. For certain data sources, this is not possible. Now, if you think about relational databases like SQL, Oracle, query folding is possible, and Power BI can easily extract data for a partition it has created. But let's say your data source is text files or the blobs, then query folding is not possible. Even though you implement incremental refresh with sources like text files, you might experience that it loads the whole thing and then apply your policy. Okay, so this incremental refresh will not work with all type of data sources as you expected. Okay, so now since we are using SQL Server, we don't need to worry about this warning, right? Now table is sales order header, we need to enable it. Historical records, I'm going to say keep 3 years, and refresh rows, let's say refresh for last 7 days. Let's change these two later. Let's check with this setting. I'm going to click on apply. My refresh policy is created, save, and I'm going to publish it. I'm going to pick my demo workspace. Publishing. Let me go into my Power BI. Still, it has not been published. Okay, I can see it, sales demo. So it is published because this is a very small data set. Okay, now let me go into this. Let me open the report in my Power BI service. Okay, I can see it. If I select something month like May, no, I don't see. June, yes. If I pick a year like 2019, I don't see. Okay, because we have published with a small data set, but we know that incremental refresh is enabled with this. Now, as I told you, when you do the first refresh, it will take all historical data based on your first setting. So we set it as 3 years. Let's do the first refresh. But before that, I want to make sure that this Power BI service can connect with my on-prem SQL Server. I have already configured my gateway, but this data set has to be configured with the gateway. So let me go to gateways and see whether it is up and running. Check in state. Yes, my gateway is online, so no issue. Power BI service can connect with my on-prem SQL Server, my SQL Server installed with my laptop. Now let me go to my data set, settings, data set. This is the data set, sales demo. This is what we publish. Expand gateway connection. You can see the data set has been not configured with the gateway. So what you have to do is click on this, and this is the source. I can sorry, this is the source, SQL Server 2017 AdventureWorks. So I'm going to click on Add to Gateway. So it opens gateway window. I'm going to name this as Sales Demo Data Source. SQL Server server name is okay. Database is okay. Basic authentication. I have a user called Power BI user, and the password is this. And let me click on Add and See. Okay. Let me expand this. Right. It is configured, but we have to do one more thing. Go back to this and select the one you just added and click on Apply. Okay, now my data set is configured with the gateway. I should be able to refresh. Let me go back to my report. I'm still seeing June data. This is my data source or the data set. Let me click on this ellipsis button and then select refresh now. If I want, I can create a schedule, but rather than creating a schedule, let me refresh data on using this menu item. Now it is refreshing data. So it might take 1 or 2 minutes because it takes data for last 3 years. Now, how do I know whether data set is still being refreshed or refresh is completed? Easiest way is go to settings and go to your data set. And you can see refresh in progress. Sometimes you will not see the updated value with this. In that case, you can click on refresh history and see still it is in progress. So this will take about 1 or 2 minutes. In the meantime, Pradeep, is there a question up to this? I can take one question if there are questions until this refresh is done.
Yeah. Dinesh, actually, there are a couple of questions.
But take one. Okay,
Yeah,
we will take all the question at the end of the session.
All right, I will pick one. The first query. Can we use incremental refresh with direct query?
Okay, so you don't need to use incremental refresh with direct query because direct query is anyway getting the latest from your database. Because when you use direct query with Power BI, you are not importing data, so your model is empty. Even though you create a report, your model has no data. When you publish your Power BI file to Power BI service, and when you open the report through the using the browser, at that time it will connect to the data source and get the data, and then show values with your visuals. So you don't need to worry about incremental refresh because it always shows the latest. I believe that answer is okay, right? So we will take other questions later. So my refresh is completed now. Now let me go to my report. So when I go to my report, if I click on May, I don't see. The reason is my report is basically cache, and even the data set is updated with new records, my report is not refreshed. Okay, so I'm clicking on refresh little report. And now let me select May and see. Yes, I can see records April and 2019, 2018, 2017. Okay, right. 2017 records. How many years I pick? Okay, so 2018 June. Yes. Okay, so 2017 June records are there. 2018, 19, and 20. Okay, right. And May and June. Okay, so we know that things are getting historical records have been loaded. Now let's insert 2 records and see how refresh works with those 2 records. Let me go back to my management studio. Okay, I have written 2 queries for inserting 2 records. Okay, now this insert it inserts record related to 2nd of June. Okay, so order date is 2nd of June. My second insert is related to 28th of May. So I'm inserting 2 records, one for 2nd of June, one for 28th of May. So before we insert and refresh the data set, let's go and see how many records are there for June and May. Okay, so if now I'm at 2020 and June, I can see 126 records. Let me make a note on it. June, 127 records, and I'm going to check May as well. I have 1131, 1131. Okay, so I have these 127 records for June and 1131 records for May. Now let's insert. You can see 2 records are inserted. Let's go for this and refresh our data set. Let me quickly go to settings and data set and check on this. I can see it is in progress. It should not take much time this time because it should go for last 7 days. In this case, if I get the time, it should check dates starting from 29 to 4th. Okay, but you remember we inserted the second record as 28th of May. Okay, Right, let's see whether this is done. Yes, completed. Let's go to the report. I'm going to refresh this. Right, so I don't see any increase with May. It is still 1131. Let's go to June. Let me refresh. Okay, so oh, no records. Did I do it properly? Let me go to this and see whether refresh was done. Completed. It looks like I have made a mistake. I'll quickly do the refresh again. I should see an additional record for June. Let me go to settings, data set. Right, all good. Let's go to the report. Refresh this. Oh, still I don't see the new record. Did I pick a wrong date? Let me go back to my query and see 2026. I'm sure that I have made a mistake. All right, okay. I think I made a small mistake. Earlier it was 126. Okay, so I'm not too sure why I recorded it as 127. It was 126. Now it is 127. But May is 11,131. So I think that was the issue. But in order to test this one again, let me quickly insert another record. Then we are 100% sure that it works. So I'm going to insert another record. Let me configure this with third. Okay, I inserted an oops. What's the error now? Okay, so this is the problem. Okay, I inserted another record. Let me refresh again. Right, let's see now. Is it getting changed? Yeah, okay, so I can see 128. So we are 100% sure. I think I made a small mistake. Earlier it was 126, but I have noted it as 127. So this is how it works. Let's do a quick update and see. I'm going to update 2 records. So let's take one record. Let me take from June. So I'm going to update 74998, this record. Okay, 1st of June, 74998. I'm going to update this as 1000. And in addition to that, I'm going to update a record in May, which is 73867, which is this. And I'm going to update this as 10,000. Both are going to be updated as 10,000. Okay, so let's update these two and see. I'm going to refresh again. So we can see whether both records have been updated or not. It looks like refresh is completed. Let me refresh. I don't see an update on these records. We'll come back to this record. But if I go to June, I can see 74998 has been updated as 10,000. Now this record has been updated, but this record has not been updated. If I go for insert, this record was not inserted. This record was inserted to my Power BI dataset. Okay, but in source, all have been updated. But in my Power BI dataset, only first insert has been taken, and only second update has been taken. The reason is this record is related to May 1st, and this record related to May 28. Now, if I open my calendar, we know that it looks for last 7 days, which means it will start looking for 29 to 4th. So the second insert was related to 28. Because of that, it was not captured. And the other update was related to, or the first update was related to 1st of May. So it is not captured. So as you see, it comes for the database and look for last 7 days. How do we know whether it actually comes to the database and look for last 7 days? Let's quickly check on that. Let me open the profile of SQL Server. And let's do a refresh with this trace. I'm going to enable trace. I don't want all these things. All I need is batch completed. Let me take all columns, batch completed, and I'm going to filter this for AdventureWorks. Let me quickly go here and copy the database name. Okay, so I'm going to run the trace for AdventureWorks 2017 only for batch completed. Now we don't have any changes, but let me go to my Power BI service and refresh, and then we can see how Power BI service communicates with my data set. Let me click on refresh now. Okay, refresh is done. Let's go to the profiler and see. So I can see large number of records, but let me focus on few items. So let me scroll down. See the last query. It is a select statement. Okay, and see the condition. Order date is greater than or equal to 4th of June and less than to 5th of June. Basically, it looks for 4th of June records. And if I scroll up, I should see another one for 31st of May, 30th of May, and 3rd of June. And if I scroll up, I should see few more queries. I can see it here, and this is for 29th of May. And this should be, okay, it's something else. Yeah, so those are the queries. So as you see, it looks for records for last 7 days. Okay, right. So this is how refresh works. So I believe that you understood how it works. We are going to do one more test. I'm going to show you how modified date works with this. So let me go back to my Power BI desktop. I'm going to change my incremental refresh policy. Let me get the incremental refresh policy, and I'm going to select this, detect data changes. Now I have something called modified date. Okay, so I'm going to pick modified date as my the column that can be used for checking whether the records have been changed or not. Okay, now I'm going to publish this again. You know that once it is published, it is going to this publish will replace my existing one in Power BI service. So we have to do the refresh again. So let me click on apply all, and then I'm going to save it and publish. Select demo and select. So it will tell me that it is already exists. Yes, I'm going to say replace. Done. Let's go and do the initial refresh now. For example, if you refresh the report, you're not going to see data because we just replaced the existing one. So I'm going to refresh the entire data set. Again, it will take 1 or 2 minutes. So while it's been refreshed, Pradeep, I can take another question, one question.
Yeah, sure, Dinesh. Well, actually, there are, 2 questions. Hopefully both are the same.
Okay.
So let's raise that question. It's about the FTP source. Is this only applicable for direct source such as database, or how we can use this as STP source?
STP?
FTP.
Or HTTP?
FTP.
Oh, FTP. Okay. So we are talking about something like text files blobs, things like that. You can use incremental refresh, but you might experience the issues related to query folding. Okay, that's the issue currently we experience with other type of data sources. But you can simply configure with most of the data sources. But what I recommend is, it is always better to configure this with the relational databases. Then it will work well. Other thing is, I think I forgot to mention that part. Now I picked the order date. Okay, I picked the order date as the column for my incremental refresh. We need to make sure order date is not getting changed. Otherwise, you might experience some issues with refreshes, because Power BI does not expect changes in order date column. Okay. Right. Is it done? Yes, all good. Right. So let me go to report and refresh. I can see all records now. Okay. Right. So let's see how this modified date changes works. So let me go back to Management Studio. Stop this and clear, and let me go to Management Studio. Right. I have a few queries written now. As I told you, so now setting works in a different way. It looks for the max modified date in the recorded data set, and based on that, it decides whether the entire date has to be taken or not. Now, I talk about partitioning, but I didn't explain it. So let me quickly explain the partitioning part. When we enable incremental refresh, you don't need to do anything. Power BI will create partition for optimizing this refresh technique. So based on your data set, it will automatically configure. In this case, we can see those are daily partition. That's why you saw 7 queries. Okay, 7 queries with the profiler for each and every date for last 7 days. So what it does is it picks the highest value of modified date for the specific partition. In this case, it's a date, and then it checks and see whether any records exist that has a value in the modified date which is higher than the recorded modified date. Okay, so if there is a record like that, then the entire partition will be refreshed. So let's see. First thing is what I want to is I want to find the highest modified date for these sales date. Okay, so if I take 1st of May orders, highest date is 1st of May, so no change. If I take orders to 2nd of June, highest date is 4th of June. If I take orders for 3rd of June, highest modified date is 3rd of June. If I take 4th of June orders, highest one is 4th of June. So my previous recording is still same because I'm using the same data set. Right, now see the updates I'm going to do. So the first one, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to pick a record from 1st of May. Let me go to my report. May, 1st of May. So I think I'm picking 73868. This one, okay, this record. I'm changing it as 99,999. Okay, so this record is related to 1st of May order, and the max modified date for this date is this. Okay, and see my second record. It is related to 2nd of June. Let me go to June and take something from 2nd of June. This is the one, 75030. Yeah, that's the one. And you can see the max date is 4th. Okay, and I'm setting the modified date as 4th as well. This is also 4th. Okay, so as you see, I have made a note here saying modified date is same as recorded one. Here also modified date is same as recorded one. Sorry, it's not the same. Modified date is higher than recorded one, because recorded one is 1st of May and we are setting it as 4th of June. Okay, now this is modified date is 4th of June and order date is 2nd of June and recorded highest modified date is again 4th of June. So it is same, modified date is same as the recorded one. See this one, 3rd of June. Let me scroll down. Okay, 3rd of June, 065. So it is 065. I'm changing the value and modified date, highest modified date for 3rd of June is 3rd of June, but I'm setting this as 4th of June. Okay, so modified date is higher than the recorded one. And I'm doing another change for 6.2 as well, but for that modified date is 2nd of June. Okay, so you know that highest modified date for 3rd of June is 3rd of June. Okay, and if I take this update, modified date is higher than the recorded one. If I take this update, modified date is smaller than the recorded one. Okay, let's check all of these things. And my last update is related to 4th of June. Let me scroll down. This is the record. 4, and I know that recorded highest modified date is 4th of June and I'm setting this as 3rd of June. Okay, smaller than this. So let's update all these records. Done. I'm going to refresh my data set. Let me see whether refresh is done. In progress. Okay, done. Let's go to the report and see how things have been changed. Let me refresh the report. So let's go into May 1 first. So we updated this record 73868. 73868. So we set up, we set the value as 99,999. So I don't see the update. Let me refresh again to make sure that we have refreshed it properly. So value has not gone to that. So which means this update, has been happening in my database, but it has not taken to my Power BI dataset. Why is that? The main reason is order date. It's not about the modified date. Remember that part. It's not about the modified date. It's all about the order date. Order date of this order is 1st of May. It is not within the last 7 days. So this record is completely ignored. Okay, that's something you need to remember. Let's take the second one, which is 2nd of June. Let me go to June. 2nd of June. And I think this is the one. 7:30. I don't see the update. Okay. Now let's try to understand why it has not updated. So modified date is same as the recorded one. Okay, so this is related to 2nd of June, and which means it is part of the last 7 days. But the highest modified recorded modified date is 4th of June, and still this is 4th of June, which means this update is not getting picked by Power BI refresh. Okay, right. Let's see the next one. June 3rd. I can see that. Okay, I can see the update. Why is that? Because order is related to 3rd of June. Within last 7 days, it is a qualified record for incremental refresh. And other thing is the modified date. 3rd of June, max modified date recorded was 3rd of June. Okay, but we are making the modified date of this record as 4th of June. It is higher than the recorded modified date. So this is a qualified record. Okay, this is a qualified record. So I can see this update. Now see this one, 75062. It has been updated too, but the modified date is 2nd of June. Now we know that recorded modified date was 3rd of June, and this modified date is 2nd of June. We know that record is qualified because the order is related to 3rd of June, but still the modified date is lower than the one recorded. Why? But why this update has gone to my data set? So that's something you need to remember. Whenever Power BI finds one record which is higher than the recorded modified date, it updates the entire partition, not only that record. That's why we see this update in this regardless of the modified date. Hope you understood that part, because this is the trickiest part I see with incremental refresh. Okay, so what happened is max modified date, max recorded modified date was 3rd of June. It finds one record which is higher than 3rd of June. Because of that, it refreshes all records related to 3rd of June. And because of that, even though the modified date of this particular update is lower than the recorded one, still we see this update. Okay, let's see the last update as well, which is 4th June. It has not gone. We can see modified date is 3rd, but highest recorded modified date is 4th. So it is not qualified. Okay, this is for a different partition, which is 4th June. Right. So this is how it works. Now, that's all I have planned for the demonstration. And before we start the QA, I prefer to announce something, which is this. Pradeep, you want to talk about it quickly? Like you can spend about 2-3 minutes on that, then we'll go for QA.
Yeah. Well, actually, this program we have scheduled the Power BI training analyzing data with Microsoft Power BI, and it's going to be 3 days program, instructor-led and interactive online workshop with hands-on. The dates would be we are starting it on 17th, 18th and 19th June from 9 to 5 p.m. And this program will lead basically this training, this workshop will lead to 2 exams. You can sit for either 70-778 exam, which is the very kind of the older one, and newly released exam. The other one is DA-100, which is the latest. So our objective is for you to attend for this training workshop and gain knowledge with hands-on. And if somebody wants to after the training, if somebody wants to get certified, of course, they can either pick one of these 2 exams, either the older one or the latest one, and get certified. That online exam can be done by visiting one of the authorized Pearson VU exam centers in Sri Lanka. Else, you can simply register yourself and you can set up your exam center at your home itself. So that is pretty easy and very convenient way. And not only that, actually to give you the more advantage and give you more insight about this and to ease your success rate and get through the exam, we have discussed and we are giving you after the training, basically we will give you another 2 hours discussion, online discussion, to discuss your questions, and if you have any certain things, certain points, certain questions which are not answered, unanswered questions, bring those and get it clarified. Not only that, during this session, we'll be giving you a free practice test from Exam Quizzer. We'll be giving you about free 20 questions based on the exam objectives. We're pretty sure that those questions will help you all to make yourself ready for the exam and get an idea. That's all about it. And if somebody is interested to attend this program, basically they can ping us, they can contact us, we can share more details about the program, so on. And not only that, Dinesh, so we can invite the audience, these professionals, since we have the data power platform meetups. Monthly we have set up all these meetups, and if somebody is interested about these meetups and gain knowledge about data and Power Apps and Power Platform details, you all can contact us. We will support you how to join and how to gain knowledge.
Right. Thanks for that, Pradeep. So do we have a question? Now, I believe that next slide. So these are about the feedback. But before we talk about the feedback, I believe that you understood incremental refresh properly. And I tried my best to show all the things that can be done with Power BI incremental refresh, and you can simply use it. I believe that everyone has at least, you will have at least one pro account in your company, so you'll be able to configure this. Earlier it was limited to premium, now it is available with pro, so you can simply use it. So try this thing and see. It will definitely enhance your environment and it will optimize your Power BI data set, and it will give some good experience to your users. Okay, right. So we are going to discuss all the questions you have added to this, but if you have any question on, while we are answering your question, if we appreciate if you can go to this URL or just scan this QR and give your feedback. It's going to be a very simple form, just first name, last name, email address, and the rate, and give us a comment. So we really like to see some comments related to this session, whether it was helpful or you want to see some more improvements with our future ones. Just let us know, like, whether it's positive or negative, just let us know. That will help us to improve our future programs. Okay, Pradeep, we can go for questions.
Yeah, Dinesh, a small addition. If somebody is typing the URL to give the feedback and rating, just to ensure that the last portion, yes, case sensitive, you have to enter the caps.
Yes, so make sure if you are typing this URL, last part is case sensitive. So SCAAA, it has to be in uppercase. Okay, so all right, let's pick questions.
Yes, so we have another question. Are there any live or recorded sessions to introducing Power BI? I think, yeah, Dinesh?
Yeah, introducing Power BI.
Yes, about let's say awareness.
Okay, so we don't have any recorded one, but if you go for powerbi.com, I'm sure that the first page has a small video that talks about Power BI. In addition to that, if you are new to Power BI, I'll quickly tell you what is Power BI and why we have to use Power BI. So basically, Power BI is a BI client tool which can be used for creating your own BI environment, your own data warehousing environment. Earlier, what we did was, being a data engineer, but we extract data from multiple sources and we configure a relational or OLAP data warehouse in servers, and then we create reports using those servers and open for business users. But tool like this allows business user to create their own BI environment rather than getting all these things done by IT department. They can get data from sources. You notice that I quickly get data from my SQL database. I didn't write a single SQL statement. So I can go through wizards. I can get data. I can do transformation. I can do a lot of different type of transformation without writing codes. And then I can create my own reports. Once reports are created, I can publish my model to Power BI service, and that can be open using mobile devices. I can share those reports. I can do a lot. So this is basically self-service BI. I'm sure that you can find some recordings or videos in powerbi.com site, or if you make a search in docs.microsoft.com, I think that's how it goes. If you go to Microsoft site and look for Power BI, you will be able to find some introductory type videos.
And the next question, Dinesh, How can incremental refresh be embedded to the to an already created report?
Okay, now one thing you know remember is if you have already created a Power BI file or the model, you have no way of changing the existing one and publish. You notice that, right? You remember I enable incremental refresh policy and publish, and then I wanted to update it. So when I update it, I'm updating my original Power BI desktop file, and then when I publish it, my existing one is getting refreshed. So if you're talking about an existing one, what you have to remember is you can add the incremental refresh. That's not an issue. Okay, you can add the incremental refresh policy to your existing Power BI file. But what you have to remember is when you publish it, for some reason, if you have made some changes in Power BI service, those things will be replaced. But if you have not made any changes like that, then no harm. You open your existing Power BI file and create those two parameters. Use those two parameters with your query, okay, and then create incremental refresh within your model and publish. That's all.
All right, thanks, Dinesh. And there was another question, Dinesh, that somebody has asked about this recording. Just to, yeah, we need to, inform them that the recording will be available after, yes.
Yes, we will be publishing this recording, so you can go through it again.
Right. The next question: what if the data sources are in the cloud and are connected via Azure SQL? Would you still need a gateway connection for incremental refresh?
If it is Azure, you don't need to have a gateway configured because it is not on-prem, but still you need to go and configure your dataset with user ID and passwords. Now, for example, let's say I create my Power BI file using my Power BI desktop, and data source is Azure SQL database. So I configure incremental refresh and everything. I publish it. Once it is published, you have to go to dataset and you don't need to configure gateway, but you need to go and reset credentials, because credential will not be passed from your desktop file to cloud. That's all. You don't need to worry about gateway setting for cloud databases.
All right, so we have another one. The way to get all modified records for the given period, can we automate it?
Yes, you can. Now what I did was I just refreshed. Okay, but if I go to schedule, let me go to my these things and go to settings and go to data set. I can go to schedule refresh, turn it on, and I can set the refresh time. I can add based on your what do you call licensing type. You can set 8 times per day, or even you can go for 48 times per day. So if you go for embedded capacity, I think you get more. You get more times, but generally 8 and 48. So you can simply go to schedule and create a schedule. So once the schedule is created, for example, let's say you set the schedule as 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So 8 o'clock, it will come to your database and extract data based on your incremental refresh policy. So that's how you automate it. I was supposed to explain this part, but for some reason I forgot that. Sorry for that.
All right, so fine. Here now we have another question from Sumant. What is the use of two parameters created? Those are because those are filled with static number, and if I have more records added in future, how it will consider those?
Right. Okay. So those two parameters, range start, range end. Just remember, you have to use the exact name, exact case. Okay. So you will be hard coding initial values. You notice that I hard coded the first one as 1st of June and the second one as 4th of June. I hard coded it and then I publish it. Once it is published, we don't have any control on those two. Values will be automatically set. So whether you add new records to your source or modify records to your source based on incremental refresh, it will come to your data set and get data. That's how it goes. So you don't need to worry about parameter values later. Power BI will handle it.
Well, actually, that's all about the questions, Dinesh.
Okay, that's great.
So far, we don't have any other questions to ask.
Right. So in that case, thank you very much for joining with us. We believe that we have given something really good for you, and you have learned something from this. And once we have published, this video will be published through InnoventSys YouTube channel. So once this is published, if you have more question, you can put a comment on YouTube, and then we'll give you the answer or the solution. So anything else to be announced, Pradeep?
Yeah, Dinesh, actually, now the platforms, the channels we will upload this video is basically you can simply like our Facebook page, InnoventSys. Go to Facebook and type InnoventSys, and there you can like and get notified all the announcements. Especially this recorded video will be uploaded, and also if you can go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel, InnoventSys channel, and then you can simply watch this recorded session. That's all about it, Dinesh, I guess.
Okay, then thanks again. Have a good day, and still we are experiencing this COVID-19 situation, so stay safe. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.